The command center floated like a steel leviathan above Vorta Prime, its hull humming with the energy of 6 star systems. Inside, alien officers of various species paced, floated, or slithered in a circle of shimmering holoscreens. Their eyes flicked across tactical projections showing skirmishes unfolding on the planet's surface below. Insurgents dug in, resistance mounting, strategic choke points flaring in red. Then, laughter broke out. "Ha! They really sent them." Admiral HFY of the Dravari clicked his mandibles in disbelief, his translucent wings fluttering in amusement. "Earth sent a ground unit, yes. A human one," confirmed Commodore Velex, her voice the cold resonance of the Zentari hive. Her 3 eyes blinked out of sync as she gestured at the hollow. "Small detachment. Analog weapons. One with a, what did the Terrans call it? A sniper rifle." "A rifle?" CHYX snorted. "Do they intend to shoot pebbles at plasma tanks?" A chorus of chuckles followed. High-ranking officers from dozens of civilizations murmured in amusement, exchanging sharp-tongued jabs about the primitive planet known as Earth. A junior officer, barely out of training, leaned in and whispered, "I heard they still use bullets. Actual projectiles." "They still believe in gravity to deliver death," Velex added dryly. "How quaint." At the rear of the room, silent and unmoved, stood a single man in matte gray fatigues, his face shadowed under a hood, shoulders broad, unmoving. Beside him, a smaller figure shifted restlessly, eyes scanning the room, not with suspicion but calculation. He had the easy energy of youth, the kind that tensed before action. Neither had spoken since they arrived. HFY turned toward them, tilting his insectal head. "What is your purpose, Terran?" "To observe." The taller man didn't respond immediately. The silence lingered long enough for discomfort to bloom. The younger human answered instead, "We're here to work." "And what work would that be?" asked Velex, voice laced with contempt. The tall man finally lifted his head. His eyes were pale gray, unblinking, carved from the same weathered stone as the Colorado cliffs. His voice was low. "Come. To kill the enemy before you know they're dead." A hush fell over the room. CHYX raised a clawed digit and gestured lazily toward a screen showing a scorched jungle ridge. "Then you'll have your chance. Recon reports enemy movement along grid Epsilon 12. We've sent drones and scouts. Lost contact within minutes. You want to prove your myths? Try surviving that." The 2 men nodded and turned without ceremony. No one stopped them. No one offered support. They were dismissed in silence, already counted as casualties. The descent transport groaned against atmospheric drag, rattling as it cut through the clouds. Inside, Sergeant Mason Kane sat with his rifle across his lap, wrapped in a thermal-sealed sling that protected it from moisture, wind shear, and careless fingers. He ran a gloved hand along the scope's length, his mind distant, measuring. Corporal Luis Ramirez sat across from him, chewing on a ration stick that tasted vaguely like cinnamon and chalk. He kept his voice low. "You know they think we're already dead." "I know." Ramirez chuckled. "Makes it easier. No one to disappoint." Kane gave the faintest nod. Ramirez had a talent for talking, for keeping the edge of fear at bay with sarcasm and static. Kane didn't mind it. The kid was sharp, and he didn't rattle. That counted for more than rank or years. Outside the dropship's reinforced window, the surface of Vorta Prime spread wide and hostile. Dense purple foliage blanketed the valleys, broken by jagged rock spires and sinkholes large enough to swallow a dreadnought. Reports said the Zarn Dominion had entrenched themselves deep within these jungles, using old mining caverns and collapsed lava tubes to move unseen. No energy signatures. No footprints. Just sudden death and vanishing squads. Perfect. They touched down without fanfare. No banners. No welcoming committee. Just mist, dripping leaves, and the quiet hum of a fading engine. "Base camp's 2 clicks north," Ramirez muttered, checking his digital compass. "Or what's left of it." They moved fast, low, silent. Kane led, his boots knowing the terrain within minutes. He read the jungle like a map, angles, heights, winds. A whisper of a breeze told him more than satellite scans. He tasted the storm coming before the air changed. The camp wasn't there. What they found instead were bodies. Or the pieces that remained. Plasma burns riddled the tree trunks, scorch marks in a wide arc. But no energy weapons had left the corpses like these, clean entry holes through the skulls, almost surgical. Kane crouched near one, inspecting the remains. "Not ours," he said finally. "Zarn kills." Ramirez swallowed. "You sure?" Kane turned one of the corpses with practiced ease, revealing a small square mark on the neck, branding. The Dominion always marked their soldiers. But the wound pattern was strange. Clean, yet archaic. Familiar. "They're killing their own," Kane muttered. "Why?" "To stop information from spreading." Ramirez glanced over the trees. "Guess we're the new messengers." They climbed a ridge overlooking the valley, setting up under a canopy of thick, fungus-veined leaves that filtered sunlight into a dim glow. Kane unfolded the bipod legs of his M97 ballistic long rifle and settled in. Ramirez watched his partner melt into the jungle floor, his ghillie cloak blending with the moss, almost disappearing from view even at arm's length. Target. Wait. So they waited. 6 hours passed. No movement. The only sound was distant bird call and the occasional vibration of something large moving through the underbrush far below. Most soldiers hated waiting. It made them jittery, weak. But for a sniper, time was a tool. One that bent to discipline. Finally, a flicker. Kane exhaled once, deeply. 900 meters. West Ridge. Trimark armor. Officer. Ramirez tracked with his binoculars. Zarn Colonel. Maybe high subcommand. No wind. Gravity steady. Angle compensating. "You sure it's him?" Kane made a minute adjustment to the scope. The red dot centered over the alien's skull, which was partially covered by crystalline armor. "Yes. Clear." The silence thickened like fog. Then, "Hey." The sound was barely more than a whisper, absorbed by jungle and distance. The rifle kicked against Kane's shoulder, and the shot vanished into the canopy. A moment later, the alien officer's head snapped backward, his body folding like fabric. No alarms. No detection. "Target down," Ramirez whispered, as if speaking louder would summon ghosts. They packed up in minutes and vanished. Back on the command ship, the war room flickered with data streams. A red icon pulsed over Epsilon 12. Commodore Velex frowned. "What's that anomaly?" A tech officer hesitated. "We had a Zarn officer go dark. Vital tracking ceased 5 minutes ago. Scout drone caught visuals." The screen split open, playing back the footage. The alien officer marched across the ridge. Then, with no warning, his head jerked, and he collapsed. Rewind. Slow. Zoom. A tiny vapor trail. A physical projectile. Too fast to trace. No launch signature. No drone. No laser. What was that? CHYX demanded. The tech zoomed in on the fatal frame. A bullet. Murmurs rippled through the command room like a stone dropped in water. A bullet from what? No one answered. Over the next 24 hours, 2 more Zarn officers fell. One in a patrol convoy. Another during a canyon recon flight. No survivors. No sounds. Just death from nowhere. The Zarn began pulling back, nervous. Then came the message. Intercepted comms translated by the UEC linguists. "We are being hunted." The phrase echoed in silence. On the ridge, Kane and Ramirez lay prone, scanning the valley through overlapping sightlines. Ramirez spoke first. "They're changing formations. No more open lines. Officers staying behind armor lines. They're adapting." Ramirez smirked. "Not fast enough." Kane didn't smile, but the set of his jaw eased. He adjusted his rifle and recalculated his next shot. Next time, center mass. Let them find the body intact. Why? So they know. The Zarn Command held an emergency session in orbit. Their general slammed a datapad against the table. This is impossible. They have no cloaking, no drone swarms, no orbital support. Just 2 humans on the ground. They're ghosts, one officer muttered. No, another corrected, voice dry. They're snipers. A word most hadn't spoken in a century. In another corner of the galaxy, on a backwater channel, someone uploaded a data packet. First confirmed kill, Terran sniper, Vorta Prime. The image of the shot, simple, brutal, beautiful, spread like wildfire through the shadow networks. The relics were real. On a moonless night, under dense foliage, Kane sighted another target. This one stood taller than the others, his armor thicker, ceremonial. Kane took his time, tracked his breathing. General rank, Ramirez murmured, eyes wide. Kane locked in the distance. 1,100 meters. Angle 10 degrees decline. Adjusting for jungle mist refractive. Ramirez's voice was a whisper of awe. That's a real one. Kane didn't respond. He exhaled. And fired. The general fell before his guards even noticed. In orbit, an emergency alert blinked across enemy screens. Command signal lost. Priority asset neutralized. Back at the command center, CHYX stared at the feed in stunned silence. It can't be. Vlex leaned forward, her compound eyes dilating. It is. No one laughed this time. The humans had arrived. The old ways had returned. And from the shadows of the forgotten Earth, the Killshots had begun. The morning after the general's death, Vorta Prime was silent in a way that unnerved even the birds. A fine mist hovered over the forest canopy, hanging like a veil above a battlefield that had yet to reveal its scars. Deep in the underbrush, Mason Kane knelt with one knee pressed into moss-covered soil, his eye level with the scope of his rifle. There was no target yet, but he wasn't looking for one. He was reading light angles, wind currents, thermal signatures, absorbing the terrain the way one might study scripture. Corporal Ramirez sat a few meters back, scanning their comm unit. His usually relaxed posture was stiff. Something's off. They've gone radio silent. Full comms blackout across all Zarn units. That's not for stealth, Kane said quietly, not turning. That's fear. Fear. Ramirez scoffed. They're 10 times our size, with heat-seeking drones, plasma cannons. They're afraid of what they can't see. He didn't need to elaborate. The truth was in the silence. In the fact that the jungle hadn't exploded in artillery fire. In the way the enemy had stopped moving altogether. One shot had done this. The shot that killed General Rivik. A high-value command target, formerly thought unreachable on the battlefield. Not just because of the armor and escorts, but because of belief. The Zarn had believed they were untouchable. That belief was gone now, shattered by a single .338 caliber round that dropped Rivik mid-sentence. Kane shifted slightly, brushing aside a leaf from the lens. They've changed tactics. Now we change ours. Ramirez arched a brow. Going loud. No, Kane murmured. We go deeper. They packed in silence, stripping their gear to essentials. Ghillie suits. Suppressed sidearms. Field rations cut to 2-day supply. The rest was weight they couldn't afford. Their new objective was below ground. According to intercepted data streams, the Zarn had started consolidating under the surface, pulling their top command elements into a subterranean network of fortified bunkers shielded against aerial surveillance. Where orbital firepower and drones failed, 2 ghosts would walk. The tunnel entrance lay beneath an abandoned relay station, disguised beneath vines and a false rock ledge. Ramirez pried open the magnetic seal while Kane stood watch, rifle scanning the surrounding tree line. No movement. No sound. When the hatch finally opened, a cold draft greeted them, earth and metal and something faintly acidic. They descended wordlessly, dropping into a black tunnel system illuminated only by a low-wattage glow strip taped to Ramirez's shoulder. They were miles behind enemy lines now, and completely alone. Kane led them through the dark with the confidence of someone born to the hunt. Every step was placed with care. Every corner cleared with deliberate grace. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the quiet became. Then voices. 2 Zarn soldiers, speaking in clipped guttural tones. Ramirez froze. Kane motioned. 2 fingers. Short burst. The corporal moved like breath, flanking left. Kane took the right wall. The 2 aliens were standing by a console, checking readouts. 2 suppressed shots later, they were dead before they knew they'd been targeted. Kane retrieved a small key node from one of their belts. The enemy's encrypted biometric badge. He slotted it into his wrist device. A soft chime. Map data uploaded. Bingo, Ramirez whispered. Main Ops Center, 800 meters west. Double-sealed bulkhead. We breach quietly. They kept moving, hugging shadow, weaving between pipes and corridor bends like smoke. Time lost meaning in the belly of that place. Minutes became hours, and each breath felt like it might be the last. When they reached the outer access corridor, Kane stopped. He crouched beside the doorway and pressed a finger to the floor. He touched moisture. Not just condensation, coolant. A low hum vibrated through the walls. They've got a generator nearby, probably powering defense grids. Disable that and we lose half their internal surveillance, Ramirez guessed. Kane didn't answer, only nodded. A quick detour brought them to the secondary grid room. 2 sentries stood at opposite ends of the chamber, unaware that death was threading their way. Kane took the far one shot to the throat. Ramirez moved in synchronicity, dropping his own target with a center mass burst. No alarms. Kane located the fuse system and clipped a silent disruptor charge onto the panel. It blinked green. Grid down in 3, Kane muttered. We move now. By the time the lights dimmed and the cameras flickered into static, they were already breaching the main ops corridor. The bulkhead was thick, 2-meter steel composite with thermal shielding. Kane examined the seal line. Can't cut it. Too loud. We use his badge. Ramirez handed over the biometric key. Kane inserted it. Red flash. Denied. They've upgraded. Kane didn't hesitate. He crouched, retrieved a small canister from his pack, and slid it along the edge of the door. The gel hissed and expanded, bonding with the seam. 5 seconds later, pop, the door side open, quiet as a breath. Inside, the command room was vast, filled with humming consoles and a dozen senior officers. The central figure wore a cape of nanoweave alloy, an arbiter, a rare rank among the Zarn, just beneath their warlords. Kane moved first. 3 shots, 3 kills. Ramirez followed, his suppressed SMG barking in surgical bursts. The room erupted in confusion, aliens reaching for weapons too slowly, reacting to phantoms. Every motion Kane made was efficient, trained. No wasted movement. No second guesses. Within 30 seconds, 10 high-ranking officers lay still. The arbiter tried to run. Kane was faster. The shot that ended him struck through the eye plate. They swept the room once more. No survivors. Ramirez stepped back, panting. That was their brain. Kane said nothing. He stepped to the central console and plugged in a data spider, a covert Terran intel tool. It lit up, pulling files, maps, encryption layers. All their ops, Ramirez whispered. Command codes. Off-world deployments. Starship logs. Kane watched the download bar climb. He didn't move until it hit 100. Time to go. But the Zarn were no longer paralyzed. As they retraced their path back to the surface, red strobes began blinking across the walls. Sirens in the alien tongue echoed through the metal corridors, warnings of intruders. Barricades slammed shut. Kane adjusted his pack. Extractions compromised. We go east, through the lava tubes. Ramirez hesitated. That's a cave system. Half collapsed. You sure it's passable? No, Kane said flatly. But the Zarn won't expect it. They cut toward the deeper tunnels, improvising a new route while alarms shrieked. Twice they had to disable patrolling units, once with a gas trap, another with a concussive charge improvised from their rations and power cells. Ramirez took a burn to the shoulder during a near miss with a sentry drone. Kane dragged him through a collapsing shaft, half carrying him over a ravine of molten rock. By the time they surfaced through a crumbled ventilation outlet, night had fallen. The jungle welcomed them like a forgotten friend. Ramirez collapsed against a tree, panting, shoulder blackened and pulsing. "We're alive." Kane scanned the treetops. "We're not ghosts yet." He retrieved the data spider from his harness and activated the relay beacon. A hypal signal shot skyward, coded and silent to all but one. 30 minutes later, a cloaked Terran scout vessel descended without sound. They boarded. Ramirez slumped into a medpod. Kane stood beside the console, unmoving. The pilot, an AI construct in humanoid form, turned to him. "Confirm upload." Kane handed her the spider. "Confirm it fast." She plugged it in. Her eyes glowed. Target data includes warlord locations. Strategic vulnerabilities. This is beyond valuable. "Then don't waste it," Kane said. The AI looked at him, tilting her head. "And you, Sergeant? Will you rest now?" "No." The look in his eyes was not pride or fatigue. It was something colder, sharper, forged. "Send me back in." Across the galaxy, the fallout began. The death of the Arbiter shook the Zarn Dominion to its core. Their encrypted networks lit up with panic. The Terrans weren't just alive, they were everywhere, it seemed. A myth weapon made real. Internal purges began. Commanders executed subordinates for imagined betrayals. Trust eroded. Alliances frayed. And then came the transmission. Untraceable. Unfiltered. A clip of the kill shot. Not from Kane's POV, but from the security feed in the command room. Someone had released it. A shadow faction, maybe Terran Black Ops, maybe something worse. The footage played endlessly across resistance networks. One bullet. One shattered empire. The kill that changed everything. In a high-orbit Terran warship, classified, unregistered, Kane sat alone in a briefing room. Across from him sat a new face, older than Ramirez, sterner. The man slid a dossier across the table. "They're pulling back from 3 systems. Whole fleets recalled. Zarn leadership is cracking." Kane glanced at the file but didn't open it. "You know what you did," the officer continued. "You made them bleed where they thought they were gods. You made them human." Kane stood. "They're not done yet." "No," the officer agreed. "But neither are we." As Kane turned to leave, the officer added one last thing. "They used to laugh at us." Kane stopped in the doorway, one hand on the frame. "Now they whisper." He left without a word. But the door that closed behind him was not the end. It was a chamber reloading. And the next shot was already lining up. The city of Veltrax 4 hung suspended in the dusk like a jewel chipped from a dying star. It was beautiful, in a cruel way. Crystalline spires laced with reflective armor, hovering platforms that pulsed with magnetic levitation, and domes encased in shimmering static shields. But Kane didn't care for beauty. He watched it all through a rifle scope from 6 kilometers out, flat on his stomach atop a glass-dusted mesa that offered no comfort and less concealment. He hadn't moved in 32 hours. Sweat clung beneath his armor, cooled intermittently by the low hum of the suit's thermal regulators. His cheek, pressed into the synthetic rest of the rifle stock, ached from tension. But his breathing remained even, his heartbeat impossibly slow. The wind moved through the ridgelines like a whisper, and he listened to it. Calculated with it. Became it. "Target window opening," whispered a voice in his earpiece. "Tech officer, female, call sign Mira. Local atmospheric flutter degrading optics. Adjusting overlays." A translucent interface shimmered across his lens. Wind vectors. Humidity. Thermal distortion. In the center, a digital ghost of a man known as Warlord Escavan. Kane exhaled. Escavan was not just another high-value target. He was the architect of the scorched earth retreat strategy that had glassed half of Europa's colonies and burned 8 Terran-aligned outposts to ash. His brutality was methodical, his unpredictability infamous. And now, according to deep scans and insurgent-sourced intelligence, he had surfaced in Veltrax to oversee the launch of a new orbital dreadnought platform capable of shattering a Terran fleet in low orbit. Kill him, and the launch fails. Miss, and Earth's outer colonies face extinction. Kane did not consider failure. Mira continued feeding intel. Window expected in 28.4 seconds. Cloud diffraction minimal. Wind shear now stable. Range 6,047 meters. Gravity drift recalibrated. Optimum trigger point in 3, 2. Kane's finger settled on the trigger, light as air. He did not think about the man. He did not wonder about consequences. He breathed in. A rooftop window shifted open in the city's far tower. Movement. Warlord Eska stepped forward, flanked by 2 ceremonial guards, his armor adorned with solar-etched runes. Kane exhaled. Then fired. The world narrowed to a single motion. The rifle's recoil whispered into his shoulder. The sound lost to distance. The bullet, a magnetically enhanced kinetic slug, split the air at Mach 5, arcing slightly due to planetary curve correction. It struck Eska between the mandibles, exiting the back of his head in a silent mist of violet vapor. No alarms sounded. No panic followed. The death was instant and clean. But the shock would ripple. Kane was already moving, rolling onto his side and disassembling the rifle with practiced hands. Every piece had a place. Every second wasted was a second the enemy gained. "Confirm hit," Mira whispered, though she already knew. "Confirmed," Kane replied, sliding the weapon into a stealth pod slung beneath his cloak. Extraction. Rooftop rendezvous in Sector Delta, 14. 2 clicks urban terrain. Low aerial cover. Multiple patrols. Kane stood, stretching slowly. The muscles in his back barked in protest, but he ignored them. "I'll ghost it." He vanished into the shadows. The city pulsed beneath him like a living machine. Streets flooded with drone traffic, surveillance optics sweeping in timed patterns, patrol units of Zarn enforcers moving in preordained routes. Kane became a phantom, slipping between shadows, hugging magnetic tram lines, descending through elevator shafts mid-cycle to avoid detection. It wasn't just stealth. It was choreography. He crossed a ventilation bridge, then dropped silently into a maintenance tunnel lit only by the flicker of failing lights. Mira fed him path corrections, a second brain in his ear. 2 tangos, converging south of your position. Heat signatures faint. Looks like junior patrol. "I see them." Kane waited as the 2 Zarn troopers passed, unaware, young, armor still bearing the shine of recent deployment. He let them live. Not out of mercy. Out of efficiency. Moments later, the rooftop came into view. The extraction craft, a sleek matte black specter, was just touching down, no noise, no beacon. Kane moved toward it. That's when the world exploded. A ripple of heat and pressure slammed him sideways. A proximity mine had been tripped. Not his. Not Myra's. An ambush. He rolled, chest heaving, as plasma bolts scorched past. The Zarn had predicted the kill. Predicted his route. A full fire team materialized from cloaked platforms across the rooftop, converging in a semicircle. But Kane didn't run. He drew his sidearm and moved into the wind. 3 shots. 3 kills. His pistol barked like thunder, the projectiles screaming through alien armor. He ducked a plasma lance, let it slice over his shoulder, then dove into a shoulder roll and came up firing. Mira shouted in his ear. "Secondary evac rerouting. Hold position for 15 seconds." He didn't answer. He was already moving. A wall run along the slanted barrier gave him a new angle. He fired mid-air, killing one with a clean temple shot. 10 seconds left. The last Zarn closed on him, massive, armored in reinforced exoskin. Kane ducked under the wild swing of a plasma axe, jammed his pistol under the creature's chin, and pulled the trigger twice. The Zarn crumpled. Kane stood still, breathing hard. A soft gust signaled the arrival of a second craft, smaller, faster. Mira herself piloted it. He leapt aboard as it banked away, engines roaring to life. The city fell behind them, shrinking into the night. Inside the vessel, Kane collapsed onto the bench as Mira applied a stim pack to his leg. Shrapnel had nicked him. Nothing critical. She met his eyes. "You're bleeding." He nodded. "Just proves I'm not a myth." Her smile was brief, almost sad. "You may as well be." They flew in silence for a moment. The stars stretched around them like veins of light, and Veltrax shrank into the horizon. Then Mira turned the internal display to face him. It was filled with encrypted messages, panic-coded dispatches from the Zarn Dominion. The death of Eskavun has shattered half their chain of command. Systems that depended on him are splintering. Kane said nothing. "There's more," she added. "A new assets requesting your presence. Not command. Not even intel. This came from the Terran core itself." He arched a brow. "The core? Why?" She looked at him, serious now. "They want you to train others. A program. Sniper protocol. Shadow-based units modeled after your ops." Kane didn't respond immediately. He stood and walked to the viewing panel. The stars stared back, cold, eternal. "You can't replicate what I do," he said at last. "Snipers aren't born in labs." "No," Mira agreed. "But they can be forged in war." His hand touched the panel. "If I teach them, they have to understand it's not about pulling the trigger. It's about being the wind, seeing the whole pattern." "And you'll teach them that?" Kane turned, his expression unreadable. "I'll teach them to be silence." 3 months later, the first candidates arrived. They were young, varied, men and women from Earth, Mars, Titan, Europa's broken colonies. Some had never fired a round in real combat. Others bore scars from a dozen campaigns. Kane stood before them in a black training field encased in dome-filtered starlight. He said nothing for a long time. Then, "You are not warriors." They shifted, uncertain. "You are not soldiers. Not even assassins. You are ghosts. Wind. Pattern. Stillness." His voice was low, without emotion. "A sniper doesn't hunt with bullets. He hunts with questions. Who dies first? Who's last? And why?" He raised his hand. One of the recruits flinched. The others froze. "That's your first lesson," he said. "You never flinch. Not at noise. Not at light. Not at death." The week that followed broke half of them. The second week shaped the others. By the third, Kane had built something dangerous. But not in numbers. In philosophy. Somewhere in the reaches of the Andrus Belt, a Zarn command ship cracked in half. No weapon was recorded. No ship was seen. A single mark was found etched into a piece of the hull. 4 slashes. A symbol that became a whisper. Sniper protocol. Mira watched the data feeds. They're adapting. Their commanders are shifting to remote control proxies. No more physical presence. They're afraid. Kane only nodded. "They should be." She glanced at him. "Do you think it will be enough?" His eyes remained on the screen. The star map pulsed with dozens of red flares, active conflict zones, still burning. "No," he said. "But it's a start." Behind him, the next team prepped for insertion. New snipers. New silence. The wind had returned. And this time, it carried more than one shadow. The stars over Carthus Prime burned brighter than any Kane had ever seen, clustered in cosmic rivers of fire above the blackened landscape. Once, the planet had been a jewel of Zarn industry, pulsing with factories, orbital shipyards, and the ruthless tempo of galactic war-making. Now it was quiet. Too quiet. Silence had settled in unnaturally, as though the entire planet waited for a storm no one could stop. Kane crouched in the skeletal remains of an old Zarn signal tower, high above a ruined basin that stretched for miles. Dust devils spun through the debris below, ghosting across shattered roads and charred metal husks. Beneath his fingers, the concrete trembled in rhythmic pulses. Something big was coming. Something buried. "This is it," Mira said through the comm. "They're deploying the Apex." Kane didn't blink. "How sure?" "I've cross-verified satellite pings and intercepted command fragments. It's real. Final stage prototype. Planetary AI interface. Shielded core. They're calling it their Godslayer." "Why here?" "Because no one's left to stop them. Except us." Kane said nothing. He scanned the basin again. Shadows moved, slow, methodical, shaped like armored titans. The Zarn didn't bring the Apex for show. It was meant to send a message that resistance was futile, Earth's defiance meaningless, and their dominion final. But the protocol had learned. Snipers were no longer solitary figures hidden in the dust. They were networked minds. Ghosts linked by silent intention. And they had come here to end this before it began. "All teams are in position," Mira whispered. "But this one's on you, Kane. You're the only one with a rifle calibrated for that armor class." Kane reached for it, a long-barrel kinetic rifle unlike any other, hand-forged from Terran titanium alloy and magneto-ceramic composites, its stock embedded with inertial dampeners and AI-assisted trajectory plotting. It was his tool, his voice. His final statement in a galaxy choking on arrogance. "Rifle primed," he muttered. Then he settled into place, shoulder to stone, cheek to rest, one eye against the scope. Through it, the world sharpened. The Apex rose. It emerged like a god from beneath the scorched surface, 30 meters of blackened alloy, limbs aglow with cascading energy conduits, eyes burning with plasma flame. At its core, a shimmering sphere pulsed with impossible light. That was the target. The core. The only weak point. "Time to exposure?" he asked. 17 seconds, Mira responded. "Once it reaches full deployment, the core will remain active for 10. After that, it vanishes under shielding. If you miss..." "I won't." She hesitated. "This shot will change everything." Kane exhaled. "Then let's make history." The Apex began powering up. Spikes of energy rippled outward, flattening surrounding structures, sending a shudder through the sky. Kane watched the core emerge, brief, fragile, suspended in the beast's heart like a dare. He squeezed the trigger. The rifle bucked like a beast. The round, cased in gravitic disruptor plating, screamed across the basin, spinning, correcting, splitting the thin air of Karthus Prime. It struck. The core shattered in a silent blossom of light. For a breathless instant, nothing moved. Then the Apex fell. Not dramatically. Not with fire. It simply collapsed in on itself, like a puppet whose strings had been cut by a blade too fast to see. All across the basin, Zarn units stopped. Without command. Without signal. Without purpose. The protocol lit up. "Hit confirmed," Mira whispered. "The Apex is down." "Casualties?" Kane asked. "None. We're clean." A pause. Then another voice, new, trembling, patching in through the multinet. "Earth Command. Kane, you've done it." Transmission logs from Zarn High Command show immediate retreat protocols activating across 3 systems. "They're pulling out. Everywhere." Kane pulled away from the rifle and sat back, the wind rushing over the tower, cool and endless. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. It wasn't about celebration. It was about the silence afterward. The sudden absence of death where once there had only been inevitability. "Broadcast it," he said. "What?" Mira replied. "Send the footage of the shot. Let every colony see what we are. What we've become." Mira hesitated. Then, slowly, she complied. The footage was patched to every major Terran and neutral system. From the refugee fields on Lunar Ridge to the research domes of Europa, Billions watched a single bullet carve through the heart of tyranny. They called it the shot heard across the stars. But for Kane, it was just another mission. A single breath. A single moment of clarity. Then it was gone. 2 weeks passed. Kane stood on the deck of the Resolute, a Terran fleet carrier orbiting Saturn's edge. Its hull was still scorched from prior engagements, but inside, it buzzed with new life, engineers, officers, strategists. And a room full of recruits waiting for his words. "You've seen the recording," he said. "You think I'm a legend." They watched him silently. "I'm not. I'm a man who pulled a trigger. Who missed 1,000 times before he hit what mattered." He paced slowly before them, his voice quiet but firm. "You want to join the protocol? Understand this. Your weapon is not the rifle. It's not the scope. It's time. You command it. You stretch it. You own it." That shot across the stars wasn't luck. It was a lifetime of waiting for the one moment no one else saw. He stopped and looked each of them in the eye. "If you want to be the wind, you must first be the silence." Elsewhere, the galaxy changed. The Zarn hierarchy fractured. Their ships fell back, not in disarray, but in fear. A single Terran sniper had achieved what fleets had failed to do. He had made them doubt. Allies long silent sent signals again. Neutral worlds began aligning with Earth. Resistance flared like wildfire in the systems they had once subdued. And yet, Kane remained distant. He turned down medals. Refused parades. He returned to the black, to the dust, to the wind. Because somewhere in the void, another shot waited. Another war-born god. Another unseen tyrant. Kane didn't fight for flags. He fought for the moment of breath between chaos. The stillness before the fall. One shot. One truth. The wind does not warn. It simply arrives.